it's going to be a collective effort. It's not going to be about one person. It's not going to be about one player. It's not going to be, Nick's pick. It's not going to be Lovey's pick. It's going to be the Houston Texans pick. We're going to embrace that player. We're going to embrace him in our building, and we're going to try to develop him and grow him and give him the best opportunity to be successful, on the field on Sundays when they have the opportunity to play.
That was Texans general manager Nick Caserio as he gets set for his first draft as Texans GM, in which he will have his full complement of picks. Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Fox 26 Sports Stream. As always, I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. We do this every Monday night just after 7 o'clock. You can find us on our YouTube channel. Just search Fox 26 Houston in YouTube, and you'll find that. You can go to our website, fox26houston.com. And, of course, you can always find us on our Facebook page. The Texans, as I mentioned, will finally get to go into a draft knowing that they're going to have a realistic shot at some of the best players. Remember, in 3 of the last 4 seasons, the Texans did not have a first-round draft pick as a result of multiple trades and wheeling and dealing and all that. And last year when Nick Caserio had his first draft as the Texans general manager, he had not only 0 first-round picks, but also no picks in the second round. It wasn't until round 3, and the first pick that he used was Davis Mills, who may or may not end up being a franchise quarterback for your Houston Texans. So we'll get into that as the show rolls along here. We'll also check in on the Stros coming off that dramatic win yesterday. Jeremy Pena, the rookie, continuing to make folks in Houston say, Carlos who? As he walked it off in the 10th inning against the Toronto Blue Jays. The Stros hit the road. They are up in Arlington tonight, taking on the Rangers, and it is a 0-0 game as it looks like the Stros just went down in the top of the first. So Rangers getting ready to come up to bat. Some good news for the Astros, though. Jose Altuve says he's feeling great. The trainers are saying it's an amazing recovery that he made after going down with an apparent leg injury and was placed on the 10-day injured list, but he was again out there pregame going through some drills and warm-ups, so may not be that long that the Astros star second baseman is on the sideline. So we'll keep on our eye on what's happening up north as things roll along. But we got to start with the Texans, who, again, are going to have not just a first-round pick, but multiple first-round picks as things stand. Here's what it looks like as of right now. The Texans did make another trade earlier today with Nick Caserio's old team, New England Patriots, giving them 10 picks as of right now, including 5 in the first. There we go. 5 in the first 80 as you saw a look at some of the potential targets for the Texans. We'll get into that in a second, but here's where the Texans picks fall, starting with number 3 overall, then the 13th overall pick. That was the pick they got from the Cleveland Browns in the Deshaun Watson deal. 1 pick in round 2, then 2 picks in round 3. So this will take up the picks on Thursday and Friday. Remember, Thursday night is round 1, Friday rounds 2 and 3, and then Saturday is when they finish things off. And as it stands right now, this is what the Texans have looking at on Saturday. Back-to-back picks in the 4th round, 1 pick in the 5th round, and then 2 picks in the 6th round. No picks as it stands right now in round 7 because the Texans made a trade with the Patriots to get into the round 5. Texans get a 5th rounder, gave up one of their 6th round picks. They had multiple picks that late and a 7th rounder. But that deep in the draft, it's really just a crapshoot. You're just trying to find the best player possible or somebody who your scouting department really likes, and you hope that you strike a little bit of gold once you get into round 6 and 7. So I mentioned a second ago, potential targets. This is in no particular order. This is just who you may see the Texans go after starting at number 3. And in all these instances, there might be a little bit of help needed based on, do somebody trade up? Do the Jaguars or the Lions, who are picking 1st and 2nd, pull any kind of surprises? But these are some of the names to be on the lookout for, starting with 3 guys who can rush the passer. We know that quarterback is the most important position in sports, and thusly anything that affects the quarterback position starts to take on added meaning and importance. So Aiden Hutchinson, the Heisman Trophy finalist from Michigan, a lot of people expect him to go 1 or 2, but you never know when perhaps something crazy happens and maybe he falls to 3 and the Texans could potentially scoop him up. I actually got the chance to talk to Aiden a little bit when he was in town for one of the big awards during the college football award season. And he reminded me that he actually has roots here in Houston. His dad was a star here in Houston before going on to become an All-American himself at Michigan. And so Aiden says he still has family here in town. He would love the chance to play for the Texans if that's just how the dominoes should fall. Kayvon Thibodeaux, the star pass rusher out of Oregon, is a name to keep an eye on, not just if you're a Texans fan and him potentially being there at number 3, but he really is one of the most intriguing names in the draft. A lot of people say he has the highest upside. And a year ago this time, right after the 2021 draft had ended, if you had asked most people around football who's going to be the number 1 pick in 2022, it was Kayvon Thibodeaux right up until this past season ended, because people are just amazed by his speed, athleticism, might have the highest ceiling of anybody in the draft. Then you get into all kinds of different questions about, well, is he really a football guy? How committed is he? I saw The Athletic had a report out today that one unnamed defensive coach said they were very much unimpressed when they brought Kayvon Thibodeaux in for an interview, because he has a lot of interest outside of football, which he's very open about talking about, that he's into cryptocurrency and he's thinking not just about his football career, but what happens when the day comes that you hang up the cleats. He wants to be ready for that. That turns off some people apparently, but if you just turn on the film, you can see that this guy is a game wrecker when he's out there and healthy. So another name to watch out for. Travon Walker, who is shot up in recent days, and there's a lot of buzz about the big defensive end out of Georgia possibly being the number 1 overall pick to the Jaguars. So that's where I mentioned that there might be some help that the Texans need as far as maybe an Aiden Hutchinson falling to them, or what should be available for them at number 3. Travon Walker is a guy who everything about him coaches love. Obviously, everybody saw what Georgia, and especially that Georgia defense, did this year. And so as the standout on there, there's all kinds of different reports that the Jaguars' brain trust is a little bit torn between, do they want Aiden Hutchinson, or do they want Travon Walker, or do they potentially go offensive line? So he's another name to watch out for, potentially going number 1 overall, or if he's still there at 3, do the Texans look to him? Or do they possibly, sticking on the defensive side, look in the defensive backfield? Ahmad Gardner, everybody knows him as Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati, considered widely to be one of, if not the best corner in the draft, right there with Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU. That's a position of need for the Houston Texans. So do they go after one of those guys at number 3? This is where you start to get into, who do you think is the best player? Who fits your needs the best, and what is the value at drafting so high? A lot of people say you don't draft a cornerback 3rd overall, but if there is one as special as Stingley or Sauce Gardner, and you are the Houston Texans and you have a defensive-minded coach and a team that has really struggled at the cornerback position, is that somewhere you possibly go? And Lovie Smith did somewhat tip his hand in that regard when he met with reporters at the start of the offseason training program last week. He was asked specifically about the cornerback position and the fact that the Texans have struggled there each of the past few seasons, and what their plan is going forward. Here's what Lovie had to say in that regard.
We're looking at the roster right now, and you see who we have there, and you also see our play at the cornerback position. Our play at the cornerback position last year was not good enough. It's as simple as that. If we brought somebody back, we have faith in them. We think that they can fit into the mix some kind of way. but that's a position we'll continue to look to improve. We can't play the type of football that we want to play until we get better at the cornerback position. I will say that.
And there have been multiple reports out there in recent weeks linking the Texans to Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., or is perhaps Lovie Smith alluding to somebody else, say a Trent McDuffie out of Washington State who might be available later on. Maybe that's where they look with the 13th overall pick. And that's something that Nick Caserio touched on somewhat when he spoke with reporters ahead of the draft, the fact that now is when you get into all kinds of different rumors and innuendo, and that's why there's stories out there about people don't like Kayvon Thibodeau's work ethic. People love Kayvon Thibodeau. People think it's too early to draft a defensive back. People love Sauce Gardner. Oh, the Texans are targeting Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State. That was a new one reported today. Or no, that's just something that people are throwing out there. Here's Nick Caserio on what he calls the silly season.
I think this time of year, I mean, honestly, it's like silly season. I mean, there's so much misinformation that's out there from, who we've brought in for visits, what pro days I've been to, what players we've worked out that we haven't worked out. So you try to put that all aside.
So again, Nick Caserio not showing his hand at all and really leaving all options open, partly because I think it's widely considered nobody knows what's actually going to happen at the top of this draft. It's not like last year where everybody knew, all right, you are having quarterbacks go with the first two picks with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Or some years you can even go deeper than that and kind of already going into Thursday night, slot in the first handful of picks, but it seems to be wide open at this juncture for several different options to go number one, to go number two, to go number three, and then some, because we also know there's a lot of teams that are in need of a quarterback. And so potentially we see somebody try to trade up into the first handful of picks and try to find themselves a signal caller. So we looked at a few options for the Texans. Let's keep looking at some of the other names that could be available. Kyle Hamilton might be my favorite player in this draft, the safety out of Notre Dame. He's a guy who just knows how to play the game of football. He just makes football plays. The reason that he's perhaps lost some of the luster that he might have had a few weeks or a couple months ago is because once he actually measured and tested out, he didn't have elite, eye-opening speed. But as far as just you watch the game tape, and we all know the schedule that Notre Dame has played the last few years. So it's not like this is a guy coming out of Division II or III that isn't playing anybody. This is a guy who makes plays in the run game and pass coverage. You can do a lot of different things with him. And so now is when you start to get into that balance that we talked about. How do you weigh, is it too early to take a defensive back? Is it not worth the risk to go that high? Is there better value somewhere else? But Kyle Hamilton is a name who I very much think whoever's going to come away with him is going to be happy about. And 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're all going to be sitting around going, yep, why did we overthink that one on draft day? Kyle Hamilton is just a football player. Now's when you start to get into these next few names. These are the guys who you're likely to see possibly the Texans target if that 13th spot, if they even should stay there. Jermaine Johnson, the defensive end out of Florida State. Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. Jordan Davis, another key member of that vaunted Georgia defense. Or Chris Olave, another star wide receiver from Ohio State. Those are some of the names that, again, there's a whole lot of puzzle pieces that got to be put together, but those are some of the options for the Texans with their second first-round pick if they end up making it at 13 and don't end up trading back. And so rounding out some of those early round picks, this is on the offensive side since we brought up Chris Olave. Ike Ekwonu and Evan Neal are both options at number 3 for the Texans. They could even be options for the Jaguars at number 1. Remember, Doug Peterson is an offensive-minded coach. He's used to playing with elite offensive tackles specifically in his last couple of stops as a head coach. So it's very much in the mix that the two highest rated offensive linemen could possibly go number one. And again, when you talk about just what kind of value are you seeking at number three, that's where, even though the Texans are bringing back Laramie Tunsil, they were able to restructure his deal to make it a little more cap friendly. This is still a team that has had offensive line issues the last few seasons. And so if you have the chance to bring in an elite offensive lineman on a rookie deal for his first few years, and who knows beyond 2022 what the future holds for Laramie Tunsil in the Texans uniform, this is an option to potentially slide somebody over if Tunsil should leave in a year, in 2 years, and at the very least, it bolsters your offensive line. So if you're the Texans and you can go Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, who was the most recent first-round draft pick this team made, and then you can add Aniki Ekwonu from NC State or Evan Neal from Alabama, that is a great way to make up 60% of your offensive line. Now you're talking about having one of the best offensive lines in all of football. And then, again, the Texans need depth everywhere on the field. Wide receiver, we do know, is a position of need, and this is a deep wide receiver draft. If the Texans do want to use their second first-round pick on a wideout, we mentioned Chris Olave, Garrett Williams, his teammate. Jameson Williams is the speedster out of Alabama, coming off a torn ACL, which is the only reason his stock has fallen some, but by all accounts, he's healed from that. He's well beyond the recovery from having that offseason ACL surgery. And now you're talking about a guy who could be the fastest offensive player in the draft. So if you're the Texans and you're still rebuilding, you have a young quarterback in Davis Mills, then taking a flyer on a guy like Jameson Williams certainly makes a lot of sense, because you don't have to rush him onto the field and say, you got to be wide receiver one from day one. You can give him some time to continue to heal, to adapt to the program, and then you could be looking at having a guy who takes the top off every defense. And then lastly, Drake London, rounding out the strong wide receiver core that is likely to go in the top half of the first round. Drake London out of USC, a guy who you can basically line up anywhere on the field, split him out wide, put him in the slot. He's just a guy who makes plays when you get the ball in his hand. So certainly another option for the Texans there at 13. I keep bringing up the fact that if the Texans make 2 first-round draft picks, or if they do draft at 13, because don't forget, Nick Caserio studied under the New England Patriots way of thinking and approach to the draft for so long, and that is, it's always better to trade back and acquire more picks than to necessarily make the pick to which you've been assigned. And that's something that he alluded to when he spoke with reporters. Here's Nick Caserio on potentially moving, wheeling and dealing. And just because the Texans have 5 picks in the top 80 doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's all going to play out in 2022.
Flexible, open-minded, adaptable. I would say those are probably some adjectives that, I would use to describe that process. So let's say the reality is probably very few teams are going to want to come up to 3. I mean, just being honest. So, and that's okay. So probably pick at 3, and then 13, could we go up? Could we go down? I've talked to kind of, I would say over the next week or so, you're going to talk to different teams, just more about positioning, about what's their philosophy, what's their willingness to kind of move. You look at the teams around you and try to get an idea, okay, if you're going to move back 6 spots, all right, what's the cost associated with that? Or if we're going to move up 4 spots, okay, what are you giving up in return? I think those are things you just kind of do kind of on your own. Where we are as we sit here today, I think, like you said, it's however many, 5 in the first 80, and then we have another 2 in the 4th round, so call it 7 in the top 108. That's assuming nothing changes, which I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
And that is a general manager being quite candid about the fact that he's looking to wheel and deal, and don't expect the Texans to necessarily make all 5 of those picks that they have in the top 80. Because keep in mind still, the Texans in all likelihood are not going to be a playoff team in 2022. So if there's an opportunity to trade back and acquire more picks, not just in this draft, but potentially maybe you pick up another first or second rounder in the 2023 draft. Well, now you're still bringing in enough talent this year that you're starting to supplement your roster. And then next year, as you are still taking another step in your rebuild, you're going to have more options available to you as far as bringing in some young talent in the top half of the NFL draft. So that's where things stand. Again, Thursday night is round 1. Friday night will be rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday rounds things out for rounds 4 through 7. We'll, of course, have it all covered for you on Fox 26, on our website, fox26houston.com. And as always, make sure you are following our sports director, Mark Berman, for all the up-to-the-minute updates on what's happening draft-wise, what's happening in the world of baseball, anything in the Houston sports scene. You can find Mark on Twitter. He is at Mark Berman, Fox 26. All right, one more check of the Astros before we get out of here. And we do have a score in Arlington. Yordan Alvarez has gone yard. So it is 1-0 Houston as they are playing in the top of the second, as the Stros looking to tread a little water here as they're dealing with some injuries. Of course, we mentioned Jose Altuve, Ryan Presley on the injured list as well. We know Lance McCullers Jr. isn't going to make his season debut until sometime this summer. So the Stros have lost 7 out of 10, and it looked like it might have even been 8 out of 10 before the heroics of Jeremy Pena in yesterday's series finale with the Blue Jays to avoid the sweep. But right now, Astros up 1-0 as they take on the Rangers. We will have those highlights and a whole lot more for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. For all of us here at Fox 26, we appreciate you joining us. We'll do it again next Monday night. Thanks a lot for coming along for the ride. Take care, everybody.